professionals, welcome to our boardroom. In this room, we like to talk about problems in the business world from a practical standpoint. My name is Dr. Ellison. I'm one part of the professional consultancy. I'm a veteran and expert in leadership and professional development. Combined, we have over 3 decades of experience, and we enjoy helping you improve performance from the janitor to the C suite. We started this company because we had some traumatic experiences because of workplace unprofessionalism, executive disengagement, and lack of accountability. We hope to leverage our experiences so that you can get better results in your workplace. As you can see, Dr. Burks isn't with me today. She'll be posting some special content from her diverse experiences and expertise in HR, so make sure that you follow and subscribe. Today, we're going to talk about navigating nuance. Our first quote for today comes from one of my favorite books that is called The One Thing. And the author Gary Keller says, "Do you think you can cut a deal with God? That time stands still for you, holding off on anything important until you're ready to participate again?" And of course, our scripture for today is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 and verse 11. And it reads, "For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven." Verse 11 reads, "People cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end." And as we talk about navigating nuance, it's important that I describe what I mean by nuance. And by definition, that word means a subtle difference in meaning or expression or sound, basically a variation in shade or overtone. So just the subtle differences and some of the changes that we see in our workplaces, especially since the pandemic, especially since this recent election and some of the things that are happening within our economy that may be affecting us today. Both leaders and their employees must deal with and navigate the nuance, as we talked about, the nuance of a perceived shifting economy. This week alone, the Fed held the interest rate steady, but cut economic growth forecasts because of the tariffs. And of course, that's on top of other seemingly endless headline news. And why are we talking about this? And we're talking about this because of concerns in employee benefit landscapes. And as you see here, the NVIDIA CEO has made some timeline changes. And we talk about evolving AI and technology and things that are happening in the cyber realm, how people have access to our information, and people are concerned about how their workplaces and jobs may be affected by AI. Also, as we are talking about representation in our workplace, we talk about merit and workplace representation, and what is that supposed to look like? What should that look like? What things should we put in place? There's just a lot of information going on around us right now. And also labor shortages. Those things affect driver fatigue. They affect how we get our supplies and logistics. It affects hospitality, the restaurant and service industries. And what about healthcare? Healthcare staffing. And if you haven't been to the pharmacy lately, my goodness, it affects our medications and benefits and access to telehealth and how things are changing with the Consumer Protection Bureau. Also, we think about the cost of goods and competition and changing or non existent regulation and how that affects us in the workplace. And not to mention the things that happen to us in the workplace don't just stay at the workplace. Some of these things are affecting us in our homes and in our personal lives as well. And this is not the time, of course, to get sucked into the news cycle or the perceived pressures, because it can be tempting to look at all of this and feel like we're groping around in the dark, and like the effects of all these changes are beyond our control. And are some things out of our control? Yes, you're right in thinking that there's just some of this stuff that's out of our control. But some of the things that are happening now, um, that are beyond our control, um, are things that we can't change, things that we can't affect. But now that we see the things that are happening, now is the time to see how smart our smartphones are, or how tactical our notebooks are. And I'm old school in a way that I still keep a notebook on me, and how truly sound our systems and processes are. So, what do I mean by all of this? And not to oversimplify, but we do need to take a few moments to assess our current situation in the midst of all the things that are happening or forecasted, to determine what we can control and what we can't. What contingency plans do we need to make? And who do we need to communicate to? And as you can see, what I have before you is just a few images from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, and also some price increases since the 2019 pandemic. So over time, you can see the rise and fall in the price of eggs, the price of gas, what's happening in the labor market. And if you go to these websites, these are public facing websites, you can see how these things affect your city and your state. So you can kind of drill down, and you can even look by look at the labor market by type of job. For example, if you are a nurse, or you have some other type of profession, maybe you are a home builder, you can kind of drill down and see what the labor market is like. And this one here I just pulled the other day, and it gives, the quit, for example, it says the quit rates rose in 7 states, and layoffs and discharges rose in one state, and it fell in 2 states. So it is important that as we are watching the news, as we are on social media, and there's so many things that we are hearing and seeing, and these things can cause us to feel pressured. And especially if you're an executive, or you're a manager, or you're a team leader, and you have to communicate these things. Maybe you have had to let some people go, and all of these things are understandable, but it is important for us to remember to take some time to assess our current situation, and to remember um, to study for ourselves, because these news cycles are exactly what they are. They're cycles. Always going to be ebbs and flow. There's always going to be changes and things that happen. And just like I read about in the scripture from Ecclesiastes, that there is a season, that there is a time for everything. And when I think about seasons, I think about, at least I do, I think about the weather. And I think about how there is a time to sow seed, and how there's a time to plant, and there's a time to harvest, and there's seasons when there's little to no rain, and then you have a season where there's rain and things are growing and things are blooming. And there's a time where you have to go and harvest. And so it's the same thing in our day to day life, that there is a season for everything. There's always going to be the up and down. But the news and social media is by design to keep us watching, to keep us listening. And while there may be some truth to it, there's also that entertainment value to it. And so it is so vitally important that we take the time to study, that we take the time to critically think, and to strategize, and to play the long game. And when I think about the long game, I think about playing chess. And there's a famous saying that says you play chess, not checkers, because checkers is considered to be a fun game, but a quick game. And chess is considered to be a long game, a game that you have to think about, a game where you have to strategize and try to outthink or outmaneuver your opponent. And so when I think about the nuances, there are so many things changing. For example, recently there was executive order signed to um, do some things with the Department of Education and some other things happening within our military, some things happening, as I mentioned, the Fed talked about the interest rates, things happening in AI with NVIDIA and chips and all of these different things. But we do have to take an assessment of our situation and where are we in the current situation, because it may not be as chaotic for us as we may be told that it is, or as the news may be telling us is, or the social media may be telling us that it is. And so it is just important. And the scripture teaches us that before you build, you take time to count the cost. Do I need to lay people off? Do I need to make adjustments in the workplace? And what does that look like? Now is the time for team building. Now is the time to have diversity of thought and to figure out solutions for things, and also to try to do some forecasting. If we do have to lay people off, or if we do have to make some adjustments, what do those things look like? And if we're doing well, if we're doing good, let's take a look at our processes, our policies, our procedures, our regulations. Are they updated? Do they make sense for what we're doing currently? And are they going to make sense for where it looks like the market is heading, for our where our competition may be leading us to? So we do need to take some time to strategize and to think, and as opposed to being fed information, we need to engage with the information, because we're in an information age, and it's just fascinating to me how we have seemingly endless information at our fingertips, but reports and research will show that we're reading less, we're engaging less, we're studying less, we're not critically thinking as much as we used to. And so it's very important, especially now, and also for our health, to just take those things into consideration and just maybe hit the pause button, take a beat just for a second or two, and just really figure out, where are we now? What of these things affects me? What doesn't? What can I control? What things do I not have control over? And just work on the things that you can control, and just come up with some sort of plan or strategy how to get after doing that. And there is a book, as I talked about playing the long game and I talked about playing chess. It's called Move by Move, and it's by the author Maurice Ashley. And this book is so relevant as we talk about navigating nuance and all of this change. Maurice Ashley has 4 decades of studying, playing, and commentating on chess. And it wasn't until the age of 33 that he became the first African American to earn the title of chess grandmaster. And there's an excerpt out of this book that I think is so relevant, and I would like to share it with you today. He says, how does one go about controlling complexity? As you may have guessed by now, you can't. What is possible is to develop the right state of mind to approach complex situations by being flexible and accepting change as a necessary feature, not a bug. And when I think about that, change as a necessary feature, not a bug, that makes me think of technology, as we just talked about. Remain focused and vigilant. Look for underlying patterns in the chaos. And didn't we just talk about being calm in the middle of the storm, calm in the middle of chaos? He says, remain focused and vigilant. Look for underlying patterns in chaos. And how timely is that for this author to say, and interesting for him to say as a chess player? Don't look for certainty and single best solutions. Instead, investigate a few seemingly compelling options, which means that we can't have just one single best solution, that we need to look at where we are as we navigate all of these changes. and come up with a few options. So I thought that that was interesting that he said that also. And choose one that suits your style and personality best. And finally, above all, he says, stay humble. Having immense knowledge is not as important as keeping your mind open to the infinite possibilities of our complex universe. And that excerpt out of this book, and I do recommend it, it's a good read and it talks about the author and his experience with chess and what he learned playing chess over his lifetime about strategy and how it shaped his flexibility in thinking. So it's definitely a good read. But that excerpt out of that book is so relevant as we talk about navigating change, as we talk about navigating nuance and what that needs to look like for us. But we are not helpless. We should not be hopeless. We should have faith and that we can try to have a plan for the things that we can control. And now is not the time to grow faint. Now is not the time to grow weary. Now is the time for us to play the long game. Now is the time for us to study for ourselves. Yes, I am going to continue to watch the news, and I don't just watch it for myself. I watch it for those that I teach. I watch it for, those that I lead. But it's also important for us as we consume information to also engage with the information and to find out what is relevant for you and what it isn't, because some stuff just isn't relevant. And some things that are um our attention is diverted to may be keeping us stressed out. And so we just have to be mindful of where we are and playing the long game. As I said, change is inevitable. As the author said of the book Move by Move, change is going to happen. It is a feature and not a bug. So I do want to encourage you in that. I would like to know what you all are doing to kind of navigate some of the nuances of things that are happening as a result of some changes in our economy since the pandemic and election and just life be lifing. But I do want to encourage you in that. Make sure to stay encouraged, encourage others, and as always, be professional.